Okay.
Everybody sits wherever.
Last year, Wisa said that he was going to throw the question back.
Seems kind of late for the first thing after lunch, doesn't it? Especially for something that starts at 7:30 in the morning.
Well, they also had the snack and nap time.
Snack and nap time. That's what's going to happen in the back rows.
Yeah. You keep strolling in, too.
All right, I think we've hit 2 o'clock. We'll go ahead and get started here. Welcome, everybody. My name is Jay Wright. I am super excited for our panel today. A couple reasons. Number one, we've got an amazing lineup of speakers. And number two, I think this might be the most exciting time in the last decade in this immersive tech space. So if you especially are somebody new to this, you timed it wonderfully. I don't think you could have come at a better time. Out of curiosity, by show of hands, how many folks are here for first time? Wow! Awesome. Welcome. Amazing. I'm going to go ahead and start with intros. So we're going to do a quick round of intros, and then we're going to hit 2 different topics today, and I'll explain those in a little more detail as we get to them. As I said, my name is Jay Wright. I have been in this immersive tech space for 16 years now. Starting to feel like a long time. I originally built the Vuforia business at Qualcomm for a number of years. Those of you that have done augmented reality development might be familiar with it. And then I spent a few years running immersive efforts at PTC, the CAD company. And today I'm CEO of Campfire. We happen to be an exhibitor and have a booth on the floor. I'll save you details on Campfire. You can come by the booth if you'd like. And with that, I'm going to go ahead and hand it off. Barry, would you like to introduce yourself?
The design process manager at Stryker Communications. Is actually Stryker Corp, under Stryker Corporate. I've been involved with the XR space for about 9 years with the development of our room design tool using AR technology.
And I'm Hugh Sword, Innovation Manager from OPN Architects. We're a 100-person architecture firm based in the Midwest. My background's in architecture, but moved into the tech space about 5 years ago, working with extended reality, reality capture, all sorts of different emerging technologies and integrating them into our practice.
My name's Andrew Lowe, Chief Advanced Visualization Engineer at Rolls-Royce Corporation. I've been doing VR for engineering in one form or another for about 17 years. I'm currently responsible for all of our XR in North America and for our XR strategy globally in the defense business.
I'm Joey Eller. I'm with a company called Whiting Turner. We're a general contractor, so we do a lot with construction management. I'm a VDC manager there, where I lead a team that focuses on visualizations. So really taking the ideas that our project teams have and finding better ways through visuals to communicate to stakeholders in the team. So we use things like animation and augmented reality and virtual reality to help us get there. I have a background in game development, so once I landed in construction, I was able to apply a lot of the stuff that I learned about virtual reality and found a strong passion there.
I'm Henry Aquamensa, and I work for a small company in Northwest Arkansas called Walmart.
Oh yeah, heard of it.
And I have been in the XR environment for about 7-8 years, and my engagement in this environment has been integrating the solution into retail environment, and that is looking at the way our associates work. How do we bring in SR in the space of training, in the space of our order filling, among other solutions that we've done. Initially, when I started embarking on this, there was very little support, and the first 3 solutions that I tested in Walmart environment failed miserably. Good, I still have a job. We stayed true to it, and by the 3rd trial, we find something that works. So I've been in the XR environment and the capacity of an innovator trying different solutions to see what works.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate that. So I mentioned this is the most exciting time to get into this space in the last decade, and let me tell you why. Number one, the hardware landscape. We have had more change in the XR hardware landscape in the last 12 months than the last 12 years. And for those of you that have been in the space for a while, you know what I'm talking about. But a couple of the devices that we use the most, and AR devices we know from the past, like HoloLens and Magic Leap, have now been end-of-lifed and are gone. On the VR front, we've had our first generation of VR devices give rise to a new generation of pass-through devices led by Quest 3, Apple Vision Pro, and more recently, HTC Vive Vision. And these devices are really significant because that pass-through, while it might seem pretty simple and trivial that we're just poking a couple cameras through the outside of the device, it's not. Those cameras through the outside of the device effectively make VR AR and get rid of some of the biggest barriers to adoption that we've seen with VR devices in the past, which is namely a lot of people feeling isolated or uncomfortable. So now with this class of device, we've seen a lot of examples of people that might have tried VR before and found it uncomfortable or found it made them not feeling well in a completely different space, and being able to revisit applications they had started a decade ago with a device that's uniquely enabling. So what I'd like to start with the panel on is, guys, tell me, and tell the group, to what extent has this new class of device enabled you to take projects further, faster, or not?
Well, I'll start out. First thing it did for us at Stryker, what it allowed us to do was scale up our operation. If you look at the original price point of the Microsoft HoloLens, it was quite high. When Meta came out with the MetaQuest 3, it allowed us to reduce that overall cost to purchase more devices. Also, the hardware is a lot more robust, so we were able to take a little bit more advantage of the visual quality, and of course, the pass-through camera was amazing. So it let us do what we did best. So that's my first thought.
Yeah, we had similar issues with ours as well. We had the best adoption out of any HMD using the HoloLens on site with clients for the exact same reason that Jay mentioned, that people feel too isolated or they start to get motion sick. When you can see through a lens and see the real world and anchor it in that helps a lot. So we are currently experimenting with how we can migrate some of our workflows with the HoloLens into the Quest 3, and it's going successful so far.
Just to add on another follow-on question there, one of the other advantages, I think, of the new class of device is the fact that it's been a consumer device and people are already familiar with it because they might have had one at home. Just curious, in your projects, guys, did you find that? Like when you started people on HoloLens, it was something new and foreign and they'd never seen before, but when you gave them something like Quest 3, it was, I know what this is for, I have tried something like this, or I got one of these for my kids.
I would say about 10% of our users actually gave us that feedback. Yeah. Most of them were still new to the AR/VR world altogether. And what I would say the Quest 3 allowed us to do is with the use of the controllers, it allowed for adaptability to be seamless. So.
Yeah, for us, it's less with clients and more with our design staff being more comfortable with it because they've played around with it personally.
And the only difference I ever really noticed between bringing someone into VR for the first time completely blind versus someone that's messed around with their Quest at home, they just find the buttons on the controller easier. Playing games doesn't seem to translate very well into doing real work. So
Sounds like you can make things more fun.
Yeah, I've noticed that in the last 6 years that I've been using virtual reality, there's definitely been an uptick in people that are comfortable in putting on a headset. That was something that we struggled with pretty early on when we were trying to implement virtual reality. People just didn't want to put it on, or they felt embarrassed to put it on in front of a room. But I found that maybe it's because of the new technology, maybe just people using it at home more, but they've definitely become more comfortable in my opinion.
I'll add an angle to it where we look at it from the psychological perspective. Because as you all know, when we started this VR training and whatnot, you put on that glasses and you are teleported to another realm altogether. And somebody have to hold your hands and place you in a comfortable situation where you don't have to kick a chair or something. So that psychology of, okay, am I safe here? I'm in an environment where I feel so closed in, and those that are a little bit claustrophobic just started getting nervous. And so people's mindset or psychology about the solution was a little different. But now with the pass-through device, it's more of integrating the virtual world into the real world. All I have to do is, if I feel like I'm getting lost, I just have to lift my eye and I'm out of it a little bit. So there's that psychological safety that people feel that now it's not like I'm being teleported into another environment and I don't know where I am. I think that is the driver here.
And I think it's important to realize too, the types of users that you're focusing and who they are is probably going to have impact on device selection. For example, Andrew, I know you're dealing with hardcore engineering folks, right? And maybe the pass-through is not as important for them as it is just to have really high fidelity graphics for maybe a high resolution metrology scan or something you might be looking at. Is that?
Yeah, I mean, definitely. I'm definitely more frustrated by MR than I am excited. It's not to say it's useless, but from an engineering perspective, I have to look at, what does this tool allow me to do that I couldn't do before? What does it allow me to do faster? And the list for that is pretty limited. It is great for doing kind of oddball maintainability analysis, like if you're doing winter weather maintainability where you got to put a huge glove on, like oddball tool access, that sort of thing. It's a lot faster to do that in MR than it is to stick a bunch of tracker pucks to the real objects and rig it up in VR. But it's not letting me do something new necessarily. It's just speeding up something I can already do. So it's useful in areas, but it's far from revolutionary. And what frustrates me about it is that for augmented reality, like applied to manufacturing and applied to maintenance, that's kind of what I refer to as a holy grail use case for XR. It's the most expensive part of the life cycle, and you can cut 20% of the cost out of it and all of the error out of it. But you can't do that with a pass-through device. You can't, that's not going to fly with OSHA putting, the thing on your head with no peripheral vision. It's not going to fly with the CBA with our union for all the safety stuff in there. I kind of call it wish.com AR because, I really wanted AR, but instead I got this.
But I think for visualization purposes, I mean, aside from the things that are production, which they're probably talking about next door, you think, pass-through's probably would you say still the best solution today?
For what?
For visualization types of applications, we need immersive, wide field of view content that we're looking at, whether it's engineering or training or sales.
95% of what we do has no pass-through from the external environment.
What pass-through do you or does Rolls-Royce use today? Can you say?
So because we're a defense company, we really only have two choices for headsets because we have to have TAA compliance, meaning no China parts, no China manufacture. So that's HTC, which is all made in Taiwan, and then Vario offers no China parts versions of their headsets. And what we're using for pass-through is the Vario XR4.
Got it.
Just to add to this discussion, I think if you look at Andrew, your use case and my use case, it's very different. I'm training associates in the distribution center on how to drive a forklift, how to pick a parcel. And those associates are not hardcore engineers, and you have to put them in a psychologically safe environment for them to adapt that training. So those visuals that are so important to you, it's not important to me. So give you an example. When we introduced VR for training in our distribution center, there were some of the associates that could not use the devices. So what we did was we have to have two screens, one screen in the front and one in the back, because we simulated the forklift, like you're on a forklift that you are driving. Because those cannot put that on, that become the next option. So now, with the pass-through, I don't need those two TVs for those that are not comfortable with the device. They can use it. So it's a little bit of a different use case. So it's kind of use case specific or the user specific.
Oh yeah, absolutely. It's it's targeted use cases. It's going to be useful in a specific scenario. But again, it doesn't feel revolutionary to me, especially considering once real AR is figured out, it's pass-through is going to just kind of disappear.
And I would say in our use case here at Stryker, what we use it for is operating room design and validation. And being able to have actual pass-through actually helped us tremendously. It allowed the customers to feel comfortable wearing devices. Also, too, it gave them the ability and confidence that they could actually walk in the spaces that we design. So I would say the AR use case was tremendous for us, and we actually prefer it with our customers.
Barry, I remember you sharing something about we only have a few minutes to get something into a doc's hands, be able to have them put it on their head and have an experience quickly. Can you give us a sense of like what that looked like with something like HoloLens compared to what that is like with where you are today on Quest 3?
So really what the problem was with the HoloLens was the gesture interface. Like putting the headset in the customer hand, and then it was a little jarring initially. It always is with anyone wearing a device for the first time. But then with the Quest 3, everything became more intuitive, and the comfort zone was always there. Even handing them the controllers, them adapting to the controllers for the first time, and then having the pass through with MR and being able to see they're actually in the real space, going full scale in the room and allow them to walk around the space and see it in real time. It gave them that sense of the comfort, and that short amount of time we have, it allowed them to validate the room design in that quick minute they have between surgical cases. It's just made it easier.
Game changer.
Definitely a game changer.
Yeah, it's great. We definitely have hit an inflection point, I think, in ease of use of getting new folks up to speed on this tech, because the out-of-the-box experience for somebody that's a new user is just absolutely changed. And if you've got a use case that involves putting this in somebody's hands that's never experienced it before, I think it's safe to say, and everyone would probably agree, the level of friction of getting somebody up to speed and proficient has gone way down, which is just a great thing. Because again, for those of you that have been in the space for a while, it's all great when you put that headset on and you have that magical experience, but my God, there is a lot of friction involved in getting somebody to put that on their head and keep it there and actually want to do it again and keep them proficient. So getting that friction out, big deal. I'm going to go ahead and switch gears from exciting topic number one, which was changing hardware landscape, to another topic that we really just can't get away from, and that's AI. It's had a lot of hype. There's a lot of people talking about a lot of different aspects of it. There's a lot of promise for what can come out of it. I think even a lot of promise for what can come out with 3D. And we've seen some interesting recent examples in the consumer domain. I don't know how many folks caught Snap's release of their device and conjuring up 3D models right in front of you. I'm going to guess, Andrew, you guys aren't going to be conjuring up 3D models at Rolls for anything anytime soon. But certainly interesting use case. But on the contrary, there are some good uses today for workflows that we're doing in design and visualization. And I think there's also some other low-hanging fruit that the technology's probably ready for, but we haven't tackled. Can you guys talk to the impact of AI and where you're actually using it and see real potential to help us ground the hype?
Yeah, so we've explored AI in a handful of different ways, pretty much the same thing that everyone else has done with image generation and stuff like that. Obviously, there's the copyright issues when you're looking at image generation, so we've looked at training our own models in one of our market sectors, specifically K-12 schools, because we get in on the project before the bond is even passed, so we have to do a lot of work upfront with a very, very low or no fee, so we need to streamline that process quite a bit. So training it on our own data set that is our projects helps us get that out a little bit faster. And then the other use case that I would say we have the most use with is just basic asset creation. With a building, there's a lot of stuff that needs to be in there to make it look realistic, that like a specific light fixture from a manufacturer that might not have a CAD model online. We can generate a basic version of that in 3D and then import it into our models.
But early stage concepting, I think you mentioned it as a substitute or a complement to a Pinterest board. We can go get source imagery to get inspiration.
That's correct.
And is that something that's in production right now, or is that people just playing around on the side of their own?
We're playing around with it right now. Yeah. It hasn't been like widely adopted yet.
Yeah.
That's kind of how it works with any kind of design technology in a firm, is you have one team start to do it and multiply out from there.
And I think you might be in the AI advanced class, because you also explained that you had done some efforts to actually train on some of your own imagery so that you were not violating copyrights of others?
Yes, that's what I was just saying with the K-12 stuff. We had just our final photography of all of our different K-12 projects and fed them into a LoRa model that we have with Stable Diffusion through Grasshopper and Rhino, so that we can put in simple basic masses from our design exercises early on with clients.
It's awesome. So powerful.
Yeah. To kind of add on to that, one of the ways that we are able to utilize AI, well, I guess first of all, AI is really being implemented in a lot of the software we're already using every day. So a lot of, being able to utilize a lot of the kind of low-level AI, we don't have to pay anything extra, which is really nice. An example of what we have been looking into as an option is within the Adobe suite, just utilizing AI to create additional, images or parts of the scene. So being able to transform things that we've maybe rendered out in 3D already, we're able to use AI to kind of change things on the fly rather than having to go back, change a lot in the 3D model, re-render everything. That sometimes that workflow can take hours, depending on what we're working with. So being able to use AI to help us in that way has been really beneficial, and we're definitely looking into using that more.
And I guess too, it would help to be specific about what you mean by AI. Like we've been doing like AI and machine learning models internally for engineering purposes or condition-based maintenance purposes for years and years. But when people are talking about AI now and getting hyped about AI now, it's Gen AI. It's that sort of thing. And we're really not seeing much inroads with that yet, especially if you're looking narrowly at XR from our perspective. Firstly, because with a lot of the tools that are out there, there's IP concerns with it that our legal department doesn't want to touch because there's no precedent yet. And then, and especially being an aerospace company where your product is out there for 50 years, if you end up having to pay royalties on something, you're going to be paying it forever. So it's not it's something you can afford to get wrong. But So there's not much yet, but I see a lot of potential. Like if you're looking at, you know, what do I think AI can do in the short term, and, you know, by the end of next calendar year, like if you're doing VR training and if you're converting CAD models into something that can run on a standalone headset or a laptop that people can afford, that's a lot of polygon decimation, and that's a lot of manual work and just a lot of pain and suffering. If you could have an AI tool that, you know, we can automate our entire workflow in Pixies to create all the LODs we need for a full jet engine training model. But someone still has to click through every single one and look for artifacts. AI could do that. And the other thing too, when you're looking at VR for training, there's kind of an artistry to texturing models and bump mapping and all the stuff that goes into making them look pretty. And that's a skill set you're not typically finding in an engineering company. That's also something AI could do. And with the combination of those two things, that's taking out the vast majority of the work and the cost for us for developing our own VR training. And you could start putting out, you know, substantial amount of VR training content with, you know, just the engineers you have, without not having to outsource or, you know, upskill people.
That's a phenomenal one. For those of you that have had the special joy of, I'll just call it asset preparation, but basically trying to use CAD models and adapt them for training, it can be a real nightmare. So,
I mean, to put it into context for some of you that might be new to this, it's not atypical for us to be running simulations that have poly counts between, you know, 500 million to 1.5 billion. So you have to take that model and shrink it down enough that it can run on the little cell phone processor in your headset.
Henry.
Yeah, I think, again, what I have is, as you all know, I try to help save people money so they could live better, right? And I have a ton of distribution centers across the country and the world with sorters and engineering equipment that I have maintenance there to maintain. So if I look at what AI can do, and this is what I say when it comes to AI. I think we have a choice to try explore it, or we have a choice to wait for somebody to explore it and we'll come back behind them and say, man, I missed. And I've seen a lot of people go through that. So in everything I see, everything we are doing, we should try and ask ourselves, is there a possibility we could explore AI in this situation? And one situation I see is our maintenance. So let's go back to when I built my distribution center and put in the sorters. Most of the sorters were designed by engineers sitting in either other countries or in other states. And so I hired a group of maintenance workers that are maintaining the equipment, but they don't have the full knowledge to maintain every bit of it. So we get to a point that whenever they can't maintain, what do? I fly an engineer to them. And then we get to a point, we now have video calls. So I don't need to fly the engineer. They make a video call, they show the engineer what is going on, and the engineer is walking them through. And then we went to the next stage, which is what? We have AR. So now they put the headset on, the engineer is sitting in another location, the engineer is seeing what they are seeing, and the engineer is walking them through. Now we go to the next evolution. We have AI. Can we build AI models and some machine learning models that can help this engineer, that can surface the issue, what is causing the fault, and can walk the engineer through the step-by-step on how to fix it. So at this point, what do? I don't need the engineer that is sitting in some country or in some state to be the next line of my support. I go through all the process, and the only time I need that engineer is when truly I can't fix it by my maintenance person, the AI model that I built, then I know that this is an issue that I need a third hand. So I think that is where we are. AI being able to help us troubleshoot and get us step by step. And I can see everything in 3D. And this is going to be a game changer. I know there are people exploring it, but I know it's a low-hanging fruit that I believe at some point is going to be a game changer.
So
for us.
my remote human expert will be a local AI expert.
That is correct.
Hope they're good. How about you, Barry?
Well, I see AI incorporated it in as part of the UX of a platform. Like if you look at traditionally when our surgeons, when we were designing the ORs, they're scrubbed in, they're clean. When it comes to our design tool, being able to walk into a space, take a look around, have the AI scan the dimensions of the space, come to create some possible room template scenarios based off of that. Not necessarily actually touching the actual equipment, but actually moving it using voice commands.
Yeah.
AI replicating that. So overall, doing that entire meeting with the customer, we could potentially redesign the entire space, let them see what it looks like, allow them to see how the product moves by just verbally talking to it, potentially pulling up setups, surgical tape setups that was previously referenced from our library. Our AI would go in and pull those room design templates and help the customer understand different scenarios and how you can design your OR from scratch.
It's almost like more spatially aware recommendations, right?
Yes.
Like it can, if something can understand what my space looks like, it should be able to let me do more than just, I want to put my couch there. It's
Right.
Like, oh, your couch should go there and your operating table right next to it.
Exactly.
I don't know if you really do that, but.
That's kind of the concept though. Like it looks
Yeah.
at the space, it brings up all the pre-templated scenarios,
Yep.
reposition all the equipment, and no one has to touch anything, but they can see it and walk around the environment without any touching the thing.
I like where the app is going.
Yep.
Sounds feasible. Other perspectives?
I think it would be important too when you're looking at thinking, what can I do with AI, or someone is trying to tell you what they can do with AI, is to temper your expectations and kind of put a little perspective to it. Like the amount of work and resources that goes into training these models that are getting hyped. Like to do a large language model, you've got $1 billion worth of GPUs sitting somewhere, just learning to speak English, what a 2-year-old can do. So when you're looking at what can I accomplish, are you going to give, a company that has $1 billion worth of GPUs a bunch of your IP to do it for you? Or are you going to spend $1 billion to do your own in-house GPU cluster to train something on that scale? Or are you going to, have a more realistic goal?
Beware the hype.
Yeah.
Beware the hype. And I think that's why shows like this and events like this are so important, because you get to hear from other people that have been in this space for a long time and have tried different things, and you can find out what's real and what's concrete. You guys have given us some great examples here, like early stage concepting. If you need to generate imagery, like as an alternative or complement to something like a Pinterest board, that's there, that's today. We can all use that and do that pretty safely. And some really good low-hanging fruit examples. The asset optimization, absolutely suited for this stuff. So I'd be keeping an eye on tools in the next year that you're using for asset and content prep, because that is so ripe for this to be optimized. And my God, it's a lot of time. And I think even the spatially aware capability that you're talking about, Barry, like that's eminently feasible. We've got devices now that can mesh the room and understand it. So being able to make that real is there. I think maybe, Henry, we've got a little time before we get the humans to be actual AI, but I'm there with you, right? There's a lot of these collaborative scenarios we talk about in XR, whether it's a remote expert or whether it's a trainer, and I think the hope would be, hey, if we do enough training in this thing, can't we just use an AI trainer to deliver it? And I think the answer is yes. The question is just when, but that promise is probably the biggest and most significant. I think with that, we're going to try and transition over to some Q&A. And Israel, were you going to come grab the mic so we had a Q&A mic to use also? I think you are. There's going to be a Q&A mic. It's going to be one of them that's on the stage. It will be circulated. There it is. Questions for our speakers? Don't be shy. I know they're out there. We got one right here. And we'll have a microphone in 7 seconds. There it goes. There it goes. Still none. It's the red one.
There we go. Hi, my name is Greg Hilliard. I'm with Cirrus Aircraft up in Duluth, Minnesota. I've heard some talking about visualization and looking at models, but what about the actual design in the VR, AR environment, like, you know, in a gravity sense type of, or gravity sketch type of sense, you know, actually working in that environment to create? What are your experiences with that? And what software do you use if you do have experience in that?
So for us, Gravity Sketch would be one of them. Not anything on larger projects, but fun, smaller furniture design kind of competitions we've done internally. We had some people using Gravity Sketch. There's a software called Archeo, which is geared towards architects that allows us to collaborate immersively and remotely and model inside of there and import our models and then model on top of it. And that has been really great for some client engagement when you have some VR enthusiasts that really want to get into it early. We're able to essentially play with Legos and just talk about the early stages of a project in a visioning session early on.
So when we're making products, when we're at that early stage of development where you'd be using Gravity Sketch in another industry, we're almost all mathematical. So by the time we're starting to use VR, you're starting to have your initial stages of CAD. But we do quite a bit of design work in VR, where you're manipulating, scaling your CAD to gauge maintainability or to just get a general sense of what you're doing. Spatially complex tasks like routing instrumentation, routing harnesses, that's a huge one. Even if you don't have a geometric output, we're still finding, what would take, normally like 8 to 12 hours of planning work, they're just doing in 15 minutes.
Wow.
The big one for harnesses, though, is I'm sure everyone that's done something with the harness has had this issue where you're modeling the harnesses in CAD, they're rigid. Real harnesses aren't rigid. So you're either adding a ton of extra space and wasting money and weight for your harnesses, or you're running into an issue where you get a harness that's too short and you have to remake it from scratch. We do some of that in VR with ESI has a product called ICIDO that we do a lot of our VR work in. It can do elastic simulation, so we're rigging up elastics that mimic exactly the physical properties of our harnesses. Just coming in with a big long dummy one, rigging it up to where we want it to go, dumping that out as a JT, pulling it into our CAD software, and then you have your perfect harness length first time. So I could go on and on for like an hour about this stuff, but there's lots you can do with it. Kind of the big three for industrial VR are ESI's ICIDO, Vertalis's Visionary Render, and Autodesk's VRED for actually doing engineering work in VR.
What was the second one?
It's a product called Visionary Render made by a company called Vertalis.
And I'm Justin from Ford. I was going to ask you, I came in a little late, but my question is, when you were going on about model optimization, did you have a recommended, was that kind of apple pie in the sky, or did you say that there is potentially a solution that we would be giving our assets to and that it would be able to optimize them?
I'm not aware of any solution that exists, but based on what AI is very good at now of finding and exploiting visual patterns, they would be things that if somebody put a little effort into it, I think there could be a viable product by this time next year.
Yeah, you turned my ear with that one. I really hope so.
Up front.
Hey, just a quick question. As somebody that like really enjoys, I have like a mechanical engineering background, but then visualization is something that I kind of want to do in the future. If I was trying to convince, maybe management or people within my company to, give more access or more visibility to that, from y'all's perspective, is it better to focus on like the internal side of like increasing like or changing my workflow in the way that our stuff gets designed, or do you see more benefits from outward-facing stuff of pitching stuff to clients or, showing them things? From your personal experience, which one has been more powerful to you to change from, from an older version of strictly CAD or strictly drawings to more interactive or visual type media?
All right. So I've found that there's two ways you can kind of broadly that both in my experience and talking to other people that do similar things and elsewhere in engineering manufacturing, there's two kind of broad categories of how to break down barriers to implementing XR. The first one is just find your biggest benefit case. Just put up a huge cost savings number and use that to build your business case or to build hype. If you save somebody a few $1 million and at orders of magnitude ROI, people will start to come around real quick. The other way is to kind of identify a forward-thinking leader, someone that quote unquote gets it, that would be open to new technology, find any use case that sits under their purview somewhere, and just show them what it can do, let them understand what the technology is, use that, and then use them as a champion to scale from there. Ideally, do both at once, but that's not always possible.
Good advice.
We have time for one more.
So probably one of the most impressive stats I think I've heard last 4 years was Bugatti saying that they were able to cut their production or design times by half and their cost by 25% by doing cross-team collaboration and virtual reality on their product development. That's a great statistic, and it really helps me internally for selling XR. I'm curious if any of you on the panel have also seen maybe some clear, hard cost savings there that we could also report back to our managers to encourage them to adopt this.
I think you have to take this just by virtue of the conversation we had earlier.
So I'll tie this into the last question. The very first thing that I did as a VR pilot in Rolls-Royce, I borrowed a gaming computer, I borrowed a Gen 1 HTC Vive, and I got a trial license to a piece of VR software. And just knowing from working in VR and CAD for having a research background in it, I knew polygon count's going to be a problem, resources are going to be a problem. So I just went out and got the most complex model I could find. At the time, it was one of our engine test cells. And I was just bringing engineers in to say, hey, look what this can do for us. What do you think? What do you think you can do with it? I brought the test cell engineers in. They had the headset on for probably 10 minutes before they found about $100,000 worth of stuff that they had to fix. They'd been working with, quote unquote 3D models in CAD on a 2D screen for about 5 months at that point. But the intrinsic sense of scale, the true stereoscopic 3D, instantly all those problems were found. Eventually, they ended up running everyone through VR that's associated with the program multiple times, from management to the instrumentation people to the UAW guys that were going to be installing the engine and taking it out. We ended up saving about $5 million. For using modern tools now, probably would have been about a half hour's worth of work.
That's amazing. Thank you.
Any more? Done. All right. Well, thank you so much for attending the panel. Let's thank our speakers. Guys, that was wonderful. Thank you so much. Have a great rest of your show.